Welcome to the IT Career Energizer podcast. For anyone who wants to build and grow a career in IT, develop and improve your strengths and skills, be inspired and motivated by the successes of others, manage your career progression, and achieve your IT career goals. And now, your host, Phil Burgess.
Welcome to episode 318 of the IT Career Energizer podcast. My guest on today's show is a lead front-end developer for Atomic Smash and the author of front-end blog CSS in Real Life. She likes to build fun, creative websites and side projects that are also performant and accessible. She has written articles and regularly speaks about front-end development at web conferences and meetups, covering topics such as CSS grid layout and CSS custom properties. So it's my pleasure to welcome to the podcast, Michelle Barker.
Hello, thanks for having me.
Michelle, can you maybe give us a bit more of an insight into your career and in particular what you're doing now?
Sure. So as you mentioned, I'm lead front-end developer at Atomic Smash. So that's a WordPress agency based in Bristol. I've been there around 2 years now, and I've been a front-end developer for about 6 years or coming up to 6 years. I sort of transitioned from working in illustration and design and also events management, and then transitioned quite late, I suppose, into tech at the same time as I was working on tech conferences, which kind of gave me a bit more momentum and sort of piqued my interest in this a little bit, I suppose.
Right.
And since I've become a front-end developer, I've worked primarily at web agencies, joining Atomic Smash a couple of years ago.
Oh, okay. So, sorry, before that, obviously you were more focused on design?
Yeah, that's right. So I graduated with a degree in illustration, and I did sort of throughout, I suppose, the decade after I graduated, I did quite a lot of freelance illustration work and some design work as well. And then I started working in events management, but I did like a lot of design work in my spare time, and then became more of a designer at the company I was working at the time, which ran tech conferences. And I really got into building websites because I wanted to be able to build my own portfolio website for my illustration work. And eventually I got kind of more and more interested in CSS and HTML, and eventually became more interested in that than in doing illustration.
Yes, it's surprising the amount of people who go into different careers, and there's an IT or a tech element to it, and that sparks their interest. So, yes, and it's not as difficult maybe to transition as people may think. So when those opportunities do arise, it's certainly something you can follow up and make a career out of. So as you've proved.
Absolutely. And I know a lot of people come in or think they have to come in to this industry going through like a boot camp or some kind of training course into web development. But really, a good way to learn is just to pick things up and just kind of keep building these little side projects. Like, do follow the paths that interest you. And then you'll kind of surprise yourself like how much you've learned at the end of that. And it's actually a perfectly viable way to kind of transition into this kind of career.
It is. Obviously, you mentioned earlier WordPress as well. So presumably that is the sort of the platform that your company build most of their websites on, is it?
It is, yes. All of our websites are WordPress based. I have to say I am probably the least knowledgeable about WordPress out of anyone at Atomic Smash. I'm very much a front-end developer, and I tend to leave pretty much all of the WordPress stuff to the other developers.
Okay, fair enough. Good. Okay, well, that gives us a great understanding of what you're doing. So Michelle, can you maybe give us a career tip, one that the audience may not be aware of and perhaps should be?
So I would say, like, for me, my top career tip is to find a community, and that can be online. So it can be things like Twitter and Slack. There are sort of different Slack meetups or like Discord communities, or offline, so conferences and meetups. And I think for me, that has made such a difference to my career. So I started out going to events, I was running events, and I went to a lot of web tech meetups in Bristol, so UX meetups,
Yep.
web development meetups. And I made so many connections there just through kind of taking the time to learn from others, getting to know other people in the industry, and I didn't really think of it as kind of networking. It was more like I was going along to learn things, and you just meet people. You start talking to people, and a really great thing to do is, even if you're kind of a little bit shy or a little bit kind of scared to just jump in and start talking to people, actually speaking at meetups is a great way to get in and be part of that community. And it can sound really intimidating to people, but I would say that's opened so many doors for me.
Yeah.
I got my first job in web development at an agency called Mud in Bath, and I basically got that job because I had spoken at a meetup organised by one of the agency's founders. So I already had that connection, and then a few months later I saw that they had a job available, and I already sort of knew them by that point. So I had a kind of good opening, if you like.
Yeah.
So I really recommend getting involved in some way in some kind of web community, and also take the time to learn from others and to be mutually supportive. It's not about just going in and trying to put yourself out there and sell yourself as an employee or whatever. It's about like taking the time to lift each other up and support each other's work, and that's a great feeling because you build all these supportive networks around you, but it's also really beneficial as well, I think.
It is, and it's interesting to hear that doing something like speaking at a meetup actually, I suppose it attracts people towards you because you become the focal point during that meetup or that presentation. So how did you get started doing that?
So yeah, it's I'm trying to remember now, actually. Cole, who was one of the directors of Mud agency where I worked, started this meetup in Bath, and I happened to work in Bath at the time. I was working for an events company that organised tech conferences, so I had a lot of exposure at the time to different tech speakers. I was one of the people kind of organising them to speak at events, and I always found their talks really interesting. And then Cole organised this meetup, which was all about SAS, so the CSS preprocessor.
Yep.
And that was the first meetup in Bath. And he sent around, so there was something on Twitter or on an email saying that they were looking for speakers to do sort of lightning talks. They already had the main speaker for the evening, but they wanted to do some lightning talks just before that. And I had just been learning about Suzy, which is a SAS-based grid system. It's kind of not really used anymore, but at the time when we didn't have like CSS Grid and Flexbox was only like just becoming a thing, this was like a really great kind of tool to use for building layouts on the web. And I was really excited about that. And I thought, actually, I'm just going to go for it. I'm just going to try and do a talk, and it only has to be 5 or 10 minutes. It's I just want to see if I can do it, and I did it, and it went really well, and like just the feeling of like accomplishment, actually pushing myself to do that was
Yes.
just such a great feeling. And you're exactly right in that it really helps you kind of become a focal point in that way, like, because I'm not the kind of person who can, or I certainly wasn't then the kind of person that could go to a meetup and just strike up conversations with anybody. I was always, a little bit shy. It took a lot for me to kind of work up the courage to start making those connections. But actually, by speaking at a meetup, you have a ready-made topic of conversation. People will just come up to you. You don't have to do the work.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's interesting to hear you talk about lightning talks as well. So maybe those sort of shorter sort of 5 to 10 minute talks are a great way of getting started.
Definitely. Having that knowledge in your head that it's only 5 minutes that you've got to fill it just takes some of the pressure off. It's nowhere near as nerve-wracking as thinking, oh, I have to speak for 40 minutes.
Exactly. Yeah. And you find, of course, you do that your basic introduction. That's at least 30 seconds, and the same at the end as well when you close it, and then you've reduced it by 20%. So
that's yeah, I often find actually I'm like trying to pack too much into a talk.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, good. Okay. So Michelle, can you tell us about your worst career moment and what you learned from that experience?
So I would say that this was after I came back from maternity leave. So when I got my very, very first job as a web developer at Mud, I had actually just found out I was pregnant, and I kind of at the time I kind of had to. I had to look for a job because I'd just been made redundant. So it was like a lot of pressure on there. And then, having to drop this bombshell when you join a new company. And they were nothing but supportive. They were really great to work with. But obviously, like I was still quite new to the industry. And then I went away on maternity leave for 6 months, and I came back and I just felt like I had so much to catch up on. I felt like so much pressure on me to do a good job. I felt tired like all the time, obviously, as you do when you have a new baby. I didn't have the time for any side projects to kind of help further my skills. So I felt like sort of completely overwhelmed, and at times I really felt like I was failing. And a lot of that pressure was put on myself. I felt I wasn't working quickly enough or to a high enough standard. And I think I think you kind of have to learn like not to put all that pressure on yourself, really. Like I certainly wasn't being pressurized by my employers at the time. But I think in this field of work, there are going to be times when you feel like you just don't get something and that you're never going to get it. It's like there's some difficult stuff to learn. But I think you just do need to push past it and just keep going, keep learning, and know that there aren't any shortcuts, but also it's not a race. You can give yourself a break.
Yeah.
And I think I had to accept that for a while I just wasn't going to have the bandwidth to take on side projects. I had to accept my limitations. And yeah, I think like you need to celebrate the small wins. So like you can look back at the last 6 months and you might feel like you've achieved nothing, but if you list all the things that you know now that you didn't know then, then you'll be surprised at what you've accomplished.
Yes, exactly.
Feel like you haven't accomplished anything.
Yeah. I think it's a bit like the thing about, isn't it, a big problem? The thing to do is break it down into smaller pieces.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's the same approach, isn't it? Because if you look at it as a whole, you may think you've not progressed as much as you would have hoped. But if you then break it down to the elements within it and then track those, then you'll see how much progress you've actually made.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Good. Okay. Michelle, can you tell us about your career highlight?
So it was quite hard to pick one of these. So I could say, about speaking at conferences or growing my blog to its current popularity. And like both of those things, they're all things that I'm super proud of. But instead, I kind of want to pick out a recent project that I worked on that I'm really proud of because it's quite close to my heart, which was a project that we did at Atomic Smash. It's for the Grand Appeal, the Bristol Children's Hospital charity. And that's quite personal to me because my son was born prematurely and spent 5 weeks in the intensive care unit
Right.
at the maternity hospital. So that was really personal to me. And we built this new website for them, and they were just such a fantastic team of people to work with, the staff at the Grand Appeal. They were so happy with the project that we built. Like I know they had a lot of struggles with their old site. It wasn't easy to update at all. I can honestly say I'm really proud of what we delivered for them as a team at Atomic Smash. Part of that work that we did for them is we also built them a star tribute sky, which is a project for basically it's for families who have lost a child. And the idea is that they'll be able to put a name to a star in this virtual sky. And it's just a place on the web where, they can just go and remember their child. And there's links to if they have, a fundraising page or anything like that. So that was a really, really special project to work on. From a technical point of view, I learned a lot. I got to kind of learn lots of things about sort of animation on the web and working with SVG and working with Vue.js. So there were lots of challenges for me. But so I'm proud of it from a technical point of view, and I'm also just proud that we've built something that is going to be so special to people who have been through such a difficult experience.
Exactly.
And the feedback that we got from it has been absolutely fantastic.
That's great to hear. So it really sounds like that project in particular, obviously it had emotional resonance with you, but also there was that technical element and so forth. So a real combination that sort of made it a real highlight for you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Good. Michelle, what excites you about the future of the IT industry?
So I think more than any one specific technology, I personally get really excited about the community and the web development community as a whole. So the people making amazing creative stuff out there who just want to uplift each other. And there can be a lot of aggro on Twitter, sometimes in the front end community. And sometimes you just have to try and ignore that a bit because it's very easy to get drawn into these debates that ultimately don't really matter that much. And I think if you find a community that is supportive like that, then it can just make working in our industry so exciting, and that sort of inspires me every day. And for me, that it's the people championing web standards and doing sort of creative coding work and coming up with amazing creative things every day. But I'm also really, really excited about the future of CSS. So CSS is my kind of specialist subject, I guess, and I just love at the moment how fast things are moving there, and how many new properties and new specifications we get released to us so frequently now. I think it's really changed in recent years in terms of how quickly things are supported by browsers, and how much sort of we as a community are able to kind of feedback and are listened to, and then these features come into browsers and we can start using them really quite quickly. So I think that's very exciting.
It is, exactly, yeah. Good. Okay, we're going to go into the reveal round now. We're going to find out a little bit more about you and the way you think. You ready for this?
Yeah.
So what first attracted you to a career in IT?
So for me, it's the kind of intersection between creativity and technical know-how. So that's a kind of sense of accomplishment from the quick wins. So I don't want to go into a big long story because I know it's the quick fire round. But I think, for me, like working in illustration and design, it was always, I enjoyed it, but it was always a bit of a slog. Like I would work at an illustration for hours and hours and sometimes days, and I wouldn't be happy with it until it was finished. And then I could appreciate it and, feel that sense of accomplishment. But with coding, I feel that sense of accomplishment after spending, half an hour solving a problem. Every time I make something come to life on the screen, I feel that sense of accomplishment.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And what is the best career advice you've ever received?
So I think one of the best is from a talk, I think it was by Tara Ojo from a few years ago. And she said to write down your accomplishments. I'm kind of paraphrasing now. But basically, like every time you do something you're proud of or you achieve something, to write it down somewhere, like, have a spreadsheet or a document where you just write that down straight away. And at the end of the year, you can look back and look at all the things you've achieved. And I think this goes back to what I was saying earlier. Like sometimes you feel like you're not achieving anything and everyone else knows more than you. But actually, if you look back, you can see that you've learnt so much and accomplished so much in that time.
Yeah, very good. And what is the worst career advice you've ever received?
So I can't really attribute this to one person or another, but I think it's quite a common misconception that you constantly need to be coding in your spare time and make work your life. And I don't think there are that many industries where there's such an emphasis on doing it in your spare time. Like, doctors don't go home and perform open heart surgery in their spare time. So, I'm not quite sure why so many people think like you must code all the time and it must be your only passion. And yes, you've got to work hard to get your first job, but I think shutting down the rest of your life for coding is a recipe for burnout and depression. And I think maybe some people do that and kind of come out the other side and realize that they've sort of excluded so much else from their life.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, obviously, early on when you're learning and you may be very enthusiastic, maybe coding does take up a lot of your time, and you enjoy doing it. But if you've got other things in your life, yes, you shouldn't sort of overburden yourself with just just learning more about how to code.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm not saying, don't do it if you enjoy it, of course. And, I spend some of my spare time coding too. And I enjoy it for the most part. But I think, yeah, you have to kind of be aware of your limits and you do have to give yourself a rest
You do.
sometimes.
Exactly, yes. And if you were to begin your career again in today's world, what would you do?
I'm not sure I would do too much differently. I would maybe put less pressure on myself, certainly, because now I know that you you learn these things eventually. You don't have to rush. You don't have to race. This isn't going to go anywhere. But I think it is a bit more difficult for today's developers because you look at any kind of jobs board out there and there's so much emphasis on like JavaScript and JavaScript frameworks and so many things. And you see, people publish like lists on Twitter of like, you must know all of these things to be a front-end developer. And when I started, I just knew HTML and CSS, and I probably wasn't even that great at CSS at that point either. And I certainly didn't know. I'd maybe played around a little bit with Gulp, but I didn't know all these build tools, like Webpack and everything else. And Yeah, that I think there's so much more that people feel they have to learn, or like you just look at the kind of landscape of web development, tools, and you think, oh, I must learn all of this stuff. But I don't really have any advice in that regard. You don't have to know all of this stuff, but I think I think I would have to, if I was starting in this kind of landscape today, I would have to, get a mentor. Like you need to find out what you really should be learning and what you should be focusing on, because there's also, the front of the front end people and then the kind of back of the front end people who are working much more with data and much more with things that, perhaps used to be a back end development domain. So um, yeah, I think you maybe need to kind of be a bit clearer about what you need to focus on these days.
Yeah, indeed. I think that there is so much out there, isn't there, in terms of what you could learn.
Yeah,
And you have to start somewhere, and it's certainly impractical and probably impossible to learn everything anyway. So,
absolutely.
yes, yeah,
I do feel a little bit bad for the people coming out of boot camps now, because actually, like, the amount of stuff that they learn on a boot camp is just, to me, that feels overwhelming, And I've been doing this for quite a few years now, and I can't imagine, if you have 12 weeks and you've got getting all of these things fired at you. I can't imagine how that feels, really.
yeah. Indeed. Right. And what career objectives are you currently focusing on?
So right now, I'm starting to spend more time on writing. So my blog has grown quite a lot in popularity, and I've had quite a few people approach me in recent months about writing on other blogs. So I've been doing some work with Smashing Magazine, publishing quite a few articles on there, and on Code Drops. So they're both quite popular
Yeah.
front end blogs. So recently at work, I cut my hours down. I'm now down to 4 days a week working for Atomic Smash, and I'm doing 1 day a week, like, completely dedicated to writing articles, which has been really, really good. Because I was finding I was just doing so much of that in my spare time, and certainly with writing for my blog and writing for other people, that was just kind of way too much. So my goal is to kind of find, I still want to write for my blog and make sure I don't neglect that, but also spend more time writing articles for other people that I actually
Good.
get paid to write as well, which is quite
Absolutely.
nice.
Oh, right. Okay. Even better.
Yeah, and then my other goal is I'm trying to learn Three.js at the moment. So that's been pretty interesting. So I'm working my way through a course by Bruno Simon, a developer who specializes in Three.js, and he's created this amazing course that's really, really good value as well. It's called Three.js Journey.
Right.
And Three.js is, like, there's so much to it. I'm back to that kind of territory of being overwhelmed at the sheer scope of what it's possible to learn. But it's also really exciting, and I'm trying to break that into, smaller chunks and learn a little bit at a time so that I don't get completely overwhelmed.
Yeah. Okay, good. The next question you may have already answered, but what's the number one non-technical skill that has helped you in your career so far?
So, honestly, I would say working in customer service and the events industry, I think every dev should work a year in the service industry. I think a lot of people come into this career like not really having uh, experience in other industries, and I think it actually does you so much good. Working with people, working in customer service teaches you sort of empathy and compassion. You don't get everything your own way. You have to listen, communicate. You have to please different stakeholders, and you have to find compromises, and you have to learn to put others' needs before your own as well. And I think that's all really informed my career as a developer. Like, I'm a very usability focused developer. I want people to be able to use the products that I build, and I want them to be accessible and inclusive.
So what do you do to keep your own career energized?
So I do quite a bit of kind of creative coding when I can, and certainly when I feel like I've written sort of a lot of articles and I'm just like, kind of weighed down by having to do like, articulate all this knowledge. I like to have a break from that and just, fire up CodePen and just create some kind of fun little demo. And because, I'm a busy person, I've got a young child, I don't have days and hours to create these side projects. But I try to just create like, something that I would be happy sharing within like 2 hours in an evening. And I sort of set myself that goal. And I think, being able to create something, even though it's not perfect, is what kind of motivates me and keeps me going. And, you get a kind of feedback loop. You share that with other people and they, when you see that other people are interested in that, that gives you a boost and gives you the momentum to maybe kind of do a bit more. That's what I like to do. If I'm not too sick of spending time in front of a computer by that time.
Yes, I'm going to say, and the next question, of course, is what do you do in your spare time away from technology?
Well, there's always Netflix, of course, which is not really away from technology, but it's certainly away from work anyway. But I also play the drums. So many years ago, I used to be in a band and I learned to play the drums at school. I kind of fell out of that at university, and afterwards it wasn't really practical to have my drums in a shared house and all of that stuff.
No.
So that kind of fell by the wayside. But then last year, during lockdown, I'm not sure what prompted it actually. I just kind of thought, well, I'd quite like to pick that up again. And I thought, well, actually, I'm a grown adult. I could buy myself a drum kit. Nobody's going to stop me. So I bought myself an electric kit. I play that every single day, pretty much. In my lunch break now that I'm working.
Ah, right. Okay, so middle of the day.
Yeah, usually middle of. Well, I have. So this is how obsessive I got. Is I actually then converted our garage into a drum room. Right. So I can actually play it in the evening as well.
Right. Okay. Good.
But yeah, that's been really, really good. I'm so happy that I got back into that.
Good. Okay. Michelle, can you share with us a parting piece of career advice?
So I think learning can and it should be fun. So if you're struggling with motivation, I would suggest, you put down the tutorials and just try and build something, anything, like, however daft and pointless. And in fact, sometimes like the daft and pointless things are the things that are the most fun to build. And in fact, the things that get you the furthest. So if you look at quite recently, there's an example actually. Lynn Fisher is an amazing designer and developer who does incredibly creative things with CSS, and every year she builds an amazing portfolio site, and it always has some kind of quirks. And she recently built a site called Nestflix, which is all about, it's a very niche subject. It's all about films within films, so kind of fake movies.
Oh yes, yep.
Referred to in other movies, and you can kind of go in there and search this library of fake films. But it's obvious that she just had so much fun building it. Obviously, it doesn't have any kind of point to it, but it's just such a lovely project, and it got so much attention as well. I think it got literally like millions of views within the first few days, and got shared by some really famous people. And I'm sure, at the time she was making it, she probably didn't think that was going to happen. And obviously, like, not everything you make is going to explode like that. But I think whatever you build, like, just you'll undoubtedly learn something, and it can be a great motivator.
It can. Exactly right. Good. So, Michelle, how can we find out more about you and connect with you?
So I'm on Twitter a lot, probably too much. I'm at Michbarks on Twitter, or at CSS in real life. So both of those are my Twitter handles. CSS in real life is obviously very much CSS focused, whereas my own personal one is if you want to hear about drumming and what used to be me complaining about trains, but obviously I don't get the train very much anymore.
No.
But other than that, there's also my website, cssirl.info, css-irl.info.
Great. Michelle, thank you so much for joining me on the podcast today. It's been great fun chatting with you.
Thank you for having me.
Hi, Phil here again. Well, I hope you enjoyed my conversation with today's guest. You can find full show notes on the website at itcareerenergizer.com/e and the number of the episode you've been listening to. If you haven't already subscribed to the show, please make sure that you do, so that you get episodes automatically downloaded to your device every Monday. Thanks for listening, and have a great week.
Thanks for listening to the IT Career Energizer podcast. To find out more about building a successful career in IT, visit itcareerenergizer.com.